welcome to the Halawa Fantasy Football League playoff recap. We had our first playoff game today. Today's drink, because I've been a little bit under the weather, is a hot toddy. Recipe for this is 2 ounces of bourbon. You can use any type of whiskey. I use bourbon, 100 proof bourbon. Lemon juice, a lemon wheel with cloves in it, a cinnamon stick, and half an ounce of Demerara rich syrup, and an ounce of lemon juice. So something to drink when you're not feeling too good. Feel pretty good about the playoffs. Anyway, let's get to it. The first big news though was the Lions won again. So that started a good week. So even if I lost the playoffs, I would have been okay because the Lions won. We got knocked out of the first overall pick, but that's okay. I would rather see them win and get the momentum going for the next year. And then the craziest thing is they did it against the team with the best record, the Arizona Cardinals. So that's kind of wild. You do not expect that. That was a David versus Goliath type of game, and the Lions were David. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a good game. And it wasn't just like a fluke. They just dominated them in every aspect of the game. And it did have some impacts, for sure, on our playoffs. Okay, so let's just get to our recap. So, we have bye weeks in the playoffs. So, in the championship bracket, James gets a bye. And Brad gets a bye. Playoff matches between Mia Milo and Cookdown Thielen, and then Captain Morgs versus Eric. So Barry Yugas versus LaRue's. And then there's a consolation bracket. Brownsville Jets and Gary Melchor had the bye, and then it was Richie versus Darren, and then Aaron versus Jeremy. So we'll just look at the playoff scores. Gary had a score of 103.42. Brownsville Jets had a score of 101.66. And then the first consolation match, Richie versus Darren. Darren had a pretty decent game. Richie's team just ended up underperforming, mostly because Amari Cooper only had 1.8. Osborne only had 4.24. Knox only had 5. And Connor only had 8. You expect a little bit more. Would have had some help by playing Davis from Buffalo, who had 23 points. And yeah, but I don't know if that's enough to catch Darren. In this case, Darren won. He had a pretty good game from Cam Newton. Strong game from Russell Gage. Christian Kirk had a good game. So receivers were really strong. He even had a good one. A good couple of them on his bench too. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 19.6, and Keenan Allen had 16.8. So just strong receiver play from Darren. He didn't need them all, but they were good. He could probably paid one instead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but Edwards-Helaire is a starting running back, so I understand starting him first. Kamara only had 5.2. Gronkowski only had 3.9. Fournette actually got hurt, so he's going to be, I think he may be on IR going out. So Darren moves on. And the other one was a rough game. Another rough game for Aaron, because Aaron was favored up until the very end, until Philly did not give him enough. Russell Wilson definitely did not give him enough, and Metcalf underperformed. He needed those guys to perform to par, and if they did, they would have beat Jeremy, but it wasn't enough. So disappointing game yet again for Aaron, even though it's in just the consolation rounds. Tyler Higbee was out with COVID. COVID is definitely going to be a big storyline. It was this week, and it's going to be next week as well. Dak Prescott kind of underperformed. Justin Jefferson did okay. Robinson kind of recovered, so the best medicine for Robinson was Urban Meyer getting fired. AJ Dillon did pretty good. Tyler Boyd had a strong game. Joe Burrow would have gave him just a smidge more points than Dak Prescott. So no consequence with the bench. So there's your consolation matchups. Okay, let's get to the playoffs now. The ones that were interesting. First of all, Brad had 136.04 on the bye week. Could he have done better? Well, he did have Miami defense have 23, so that wouldn't have made a difference. Roethlisberger had 13, so he played. Hurts actually had a really good game for him. Yeah, no. He played it as well as he could have, so he had a pretty strong score, but if he had been playing me, he would have lost. But so he's fortunate with the bye week. Same with James. I don't know for James though. I don't think he started everybody. He treated the bye week as a real bye and just I don't know. Actually, he did try to play it, but Tom Brady and Tampa Bay got shut out. So Brady is out, Godwin is out. So actually that might be some concerns for James because Godwin got hurt, I think. Ezekiel Elliott did good. Cortland Sutton only gave him 2 points. Yeah, so he's going to have to try to recover a little bit for the playoff match next week. Okay, now let's get to the actual games for the playoffs. Mia Milo versus Cooked on a Thielen. Mike was favored in the beginning, 137.96 to me, 132.19. But this game didn't bode well in the beginning when you saw Kansas City play on Thursday. And just it all like came pouring out in the fourth quarter because Mahomes ended up with 35 points and Travis Kelce had 36.1 points. 2 touchdowns towards the end, and then Rumley for almost 200 yards. He had 191 yards. So already that set me up really well. I was telling Mike, I'm kind of concerned because my running backs are kind of sketchy because in the beginning, I wanted to play DeAndre Swift, but he was still in injuries. I was kind of relying on J.D. McKissick, even Royce Freeman, who did okay. I ended up going with Michael Carter, who was on IR and just came off, and he only had 3.3 points. And then picking up Craig Reynolds, as he did pretty good the previous game. And then Yahoo kind of treated him like an afterthought, so he kind of flew under the radar, and that was fortunate for me. I was enough to snag him. And then just today with my Rams players, Henderson kind of underperformed. This is his first game back, but Cooper Kupp more than carried them. Matt Gay also held his own, kicking like a 55-yard field goal. So he scored 12 points, and Cooper Kupp gave me another 30-pointer. So giving me the high points for the week. For Mike, it was a down week. It was a rough one for him. Not much he could do because when guys like Higgins doesn't do well, Cordero Patterson doesn't do well, Melvin Gordon doesn't do well, those are guys that he relies on, and they just did not do so good. And even if he had like played some of these guys off the bench, like Foreman, 16.7 points running back, if he played him instead of Melvin Gordon, that only gives him another 8 points. So it was kind of it didn't look good on Thursday. After Sunday, it really looked bad, and then it was already over after Monday. Because I think who played on Monday? Was it? I don't know. I forget what it's Tuesday. I'm confused. This is a whole COVID thing. It's kind of strange looking at the schedule. But congrats, Mike. You fought to the playoffs, but you got eliminated in the first round. And then the final game was the closest game of the playoffs, and there was actually some drama, and it did go down to the wire. In addition to the consolation game between Jeremy and Aaron, this one was another one that was tight. So if you looked at this game, it was Morgan's. Morgan had it was looking good for Morgan because Eric did not do so hot in the beginning. It started off with like that Detroit game, them just like taking it to the Arizona Cardinals. making Kyler Murray score about half of what he should have been able to score. Tyreek Hill was the only saving grace in the beginning, keeping him afloat. And then Ramondre Stevenson, another disappointing one. So it really looked, and then at the same time, Morgan had strong running back play from Eckler and Taylor, as to be expected. So it was not looking good for Eric in the beginning. And then I think it was yesterday, I don't know, like Sunday and Monday are kind of a blur to me, but these two games, Aaron Jones getting him 15.6 was critical. And then Eric picking up Minnesota and them giving him 31 points was huge, because he had played Montgomery and Minnesota at the same time. And it was funny because Eric was getting 2 points for every time that Montgomery would get a carry and he would get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. That's a point for the carry, and then a point for the tackle for loss for the defense. So if you look at his defense, he had so many ancillary defensive stats that Minnesota gave him that it just changed the tide of the game. Morgan went from being favored to now the underdog after that. And then Eric had 123.14 after yesterday's game, and it was all up to Morgan, with Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith trying to carry him. And they looked like they were like, Goddard had a really strong first half, scoring almost 100 points in the 100 yards in the first half, just no touchdowns. And that's the only thing that really made it close. Devontae Smith had early targets and receptions, but he too kind of disappeared in the second half, and it just went all running backs. He probably could have helped himself by playing Miles Sanders, 17.4 points. That definitely would have helped in place of, I guess, Devontae Parker, because the only other thing he could have done was flexed him in. But that's only 3 points additional, which isn't enough. So it was just a valiant effort for Morgan's team down to the end, and it was just a matter of like vulturing. It was just nothing but vultures. Those touchdowns that Philly scored, they went to 2 of them went to Jalen Hurts, who ran them in, and then another one went to, I don't know, like a third, fourth string wide receiver. So tough breaks. Devontae Smith had a dropped pass for a touch that would have counted for a touchdown. Actually, he didn't drop it. They just called him out of bounds, and that could have went either way. And then the same with Goddard. Early in the game, he had one where it looked like he dropped it, but it bounced off his heel and it went for a interception, and that cost them. And then he had another drop or two, so it was a brutal day for Morgan's team. Really nice way to close out his playoff run, though. He had it all lined up, rooting for Philly players. That's his team. Eagles is his team. And they carried him as far as he could, but he just fell short. So congrats to Eric and Mia Milo, who move on. So I think based on the overview, if you look at this, I think this is what it's based on. Mia Milo will play Hurts to lose, I think. I'm not sure. And then Eric will play James. So that will make up the semifinals. And then we'll see what comes forward. So it's been a crazy week. COVID definitely decimated some rosters. As you saw, it really messed with the schedule too. We actually had games that got pushed to today. That's why I didn't have an update until today. And it's also going to affect waivers. So waivers won't clear tonight. They'll actually clear. You won't get them until like Thursday morning or something. So you got to make sure you get those waivers in. Pay close attention to whoever's on the COVID. I did say that if it gets like super crazy where like a roster gets like decimated, where like over half of your team has guys on the COVID, then I may have to step in and make like expanded COVID-19 slots. or IR slots. That way, you don't have to necessarily dump too many of your guys. But that's kind of like a COVID Armageddon situation. If it comes to it, we'll explore it. But so far, everything's been managed. You have to pay attention because like there's been guys that have been put on the COVID list. If they're vaccinated, that's a good thing because that means that all they need to do is test negative within 24 hours of their previous negative tests, and they're cleared. If they're like, if they tested positive and they didn't get vaccinated like Cole Beasley, they're out for 10 days. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's just the break. So that's somebody that James has, so it definitely will impact him. So looking forward to next week. We'll quit it here. Not much else to say. We're right smack dab in the middle of the playoffs now. Next week is the semifinals, and then the week after is the finals. So there you go. See ya.
Welcome to Detroit. Man, I tell you what, we did everything we said we needed to do to that team. We did everything. And I tell you what, defense, you took it personal. It's 3 and out, man. You guys are making them have to punt. We turn the ball over offensively, right? And then we defensively, a mighty 2-4, get a turnover. I tell you what, offensively, man, we came after them early, man. We said we're going to be aggressive. We took some shots, and we made them. We made our shots early, and then we just started hammering them. Hell, our first drive was 8 minutes, man. You guys are a tough, gritty group, man. You're a tough, gritty group. You always have been, and now you're seeing the dividends, man. Look, a team gets 1 out, 2 out. We got multiple guys out, and multiple guys stepped up, and that's what we're capable of.
Hell yeah.
Be smart, take care of yourself. Put me down, man.
That's a team win right there. Hey, that's a team win right there. Picking each other up when we need it. Good shit, boys. Why not win the next 3? Let's go. Win on 3. 1, 2.